The Big Issue. Breaking down the issues that matter.
Our very vibrant in-house analyst, Chibuzo Okaibe.
Thank you for that.
Paul Agbo.
So basically,
and of course the very cerebral Budik Badebo.
thank you.
You're all welcome to the studio.
Yeah. My pleasure.
And of course we are here again to keep tab with big issues happening around the country. And of course for the big issue of the day is the scenario in Wadata House, the National Secretariat of the People's Democratic Party, which was enveloped by tension following the resignation of 7 members of the party's National Working Committee. The officials, who are mainly deputies, resigned on grounds of what they describe as an unpleasant working environment and unfair treatment by the party's leadership. Those who resigned include the Deputy National Financial Secretary, the Deputy Legal Advisor, the Deputy National Auditor, the Deputy National Publicity Secretary, the Deputy Women Leader, and the Deputy Organizing Secretary. And of course, one of the 7 national officers of the PDP who tenders his resignation accused the national chairman of the party, Prince Uche Secondus, of sidelining them. He said incapacity and bad treatment exhibited by Secondus were responsible for their action. He further said the national chairman of PDP is not competent to manage the affairs of the party because he lacks the managerial capacity to do so. And of course, I know that Nigerians out there are wondering because they're trying to place where the crisis may have arisen from in the main opposition party in the country. But of course, before we begin to take the issues as they come, we would like to listen from an insider. And of course, the insider is no less a person and one of the members of the National Working Committee who tendered his resignation later. And of course, his name is Diran Odeyemi, Deputy National Publicity Secretary of the PDP. Or should we say SY? No, I don't know whether his resignation letter has been accepted or not. Of course, we'll have him here in the studio. He's going to give us a brief of what would have actually been the main issue. So, Mr. Odeyemi, you are welcome to this program.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. I'm happy to join you. Perhaps I should tell you that I'm one of you. I'm a journalist. I only find myself in politics.
Okay, sir. We want to understand what really went wrong, because at the end of the day, Nigerians just woke up and imagined that crisis just erupted in the party. But at the end of the day, they are at a loss as at what really happened, and most of them are now relying on speculation. Please, can you just give us an insight of the real issue behind the crisis that led to this resignation of you and not 6 other of your colleagues?
Thank you very much. Let me start by telling you that I'm the chairman of the deputies. And we do have our meetings and we do talk among ourselves. I wouldn't want to see our resignation as a crisis per se. I would rather see it as a way of assisting the party to look internally to what could be a major crisis in the future. Yes, we believe as deputies that the constitution of the party is faulty. It's faulty in the sense that it does not give specific role and assignment to deputies. What it clearly states is that you are only a deputy to your principal, and you can only act in the absence of the substantive officer. This makes it very difficult for us to perform in our individual capacity as vibrant politicians. Personally, I don't have any cause to complain because working with Kola Ologbondiyan is like working with a friend. When he was in the media, I was also in the media. I was the former Vanguard correspondent in Oyo and Osun. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now. We can hear you now.
Okay. And because the media is too large for a person to manage, I wouldn't say I'm not engaged at all. I'm fully engaged. And as a matter of fact, having 4 people to manage the media is not even enough because, by my own understanding, it is not a bad idea if you have somebody managing the electronic media, another person managing the print media, another person managing the social media, you know. So I am engaged, but I'm concerned about my other colleagues, the treasurer, the auditor, the organizing secretary. They practically have no role according to the constitution. Having said that, we believe the chairman should have created an avenue for us to feel the importance of being a national officer. We believe that we should be more engaged in the activities of the party, and this can only be done by the national chairman. And since the chairman believes it's only the substantive officers, according to the constitution of the party, can work with him, we see ourselves as inconsequential and not very important to what to the operation in Wadata. It has been like this, from the inception. But because we are not ready to rock the boat, because we are not ready to fight anybody, we let it remain as it is. But recently, we just called ourselves together and we took a decision that perhaps we have spent almost 3.5 years in office now without anything to say that we have done or that we have achieved individually. And if the constitution is faulty and the operator does not know how to engage us, then the best thing is just for each and every one of us to go back to our constituencies and remain relevant and continue to play our part there. So that was what informed our collective decision to resign and to send a signal to the hierarchy of the party that there is need to review this constitution that made deputies to be redundant or extra tired. That is
Well,
our intention.
yes, thank you, Mr. Odeyemi. But from what is being peddled in the political cycle, of course, within the parties, that there's a grand plot to remove the national chairman of the party, Prince Uche Secondus, and that your resignation is a prelude to what actually is going to play out in the power play. That the very powerful forces are planning to remove the national chairman of the party, and that is what would have started playing out beginning with your resignation. What can you
You
say to
see,
this?
this is politics. If we had done this a year ago, people will still have meanings to it. They will still read meanings to it. The timing is not important to us. We believe with few months to the convention when new officers will be coming on board, we just need to send a signal to the hierarchy and to the party that we have not been thoroughly engaged. So we are not parties to people who want to move secondos. We are not party to whatever. Just like I told you, if we are not important in the party, if our voice and we don't have a vote, we are not members of the National Working Committee, we're only national officers. What is our importance that our resignation will now ignite the removal of the chairman. We don't see it that way. It's unfortunately some people are using that opportunity to now call for the removal of the chairman. We acted on our own and on our own, collective decision without any interference from anybody from any quarter.
Well, sir, let's look at this again. In the event where the party rejects your resignation and then assures that it is going to address most of these grievances you people have actually aired, are you people going to resign your decision and then return to the party?
I can't hear you again. I can't hear you.
Okay, can you hear me now? Can you hear me, sir?
I can't hear you.
Can you?
Okay.
Okay.
No.
You can hear me now, sir.
No, I can't hear
Can you hear
you.
me now? You cannot.
No.
Sorry, it's just a little hitch. Sir, can you hear me now? Can you hear me now, sir? Well, it's like we lost what they hear me. Of course, you've all heard what the SY Deputy National Public Secretary of the party has said, that the idea of their action, the main objective of their action is to push their grievances and to express it. They are not well treated in the party, as against what they said it was the outcome of power play. What are you?
Well, this question of sidelining deputies within the party has been a long one. Even under previous party administrations, that complaint was there, but it was quite silent. But as much as the timing has become quite interesting, considering the push and pull between Secondus and his ex-while political ally, which is the university governor. It was all naturally going to create this kind of meaning, because people will try to put this in context, the context of their action. They'll try to place it side by side, okay, perhaps, but like he rightly pointed out, there was no better time to signal their distress and get the kind of attention they deserve. Because if they had done this outside these two elephants fighting, perhaps it would have just gone the way of other hiccups too within the party. So strategically, yes, I think they struck when they felt it was going to be very loud. And obviously it's quite loud, because I know there were a series of meetings that went on yesterday after their resignation, and it emboldened the national leader to come out and say, okay, this is what has been going on. So timing is always going to be an issue. Timing is quite important in politics. So you can't fault them at the level of the complaints they are making, because for party watchers and people who understand how the party works, these things have been there.
Well, I'm talking about timing, Chibuzo.
Yes.
You see, when we thought that the APC was the only major party in the country facing serious crisis, out of the blues, the 7 members of the PDP chose to resign. And then you consider the time they chose to resign. It was the same PDP that, as of last week, prior to the congresses of the APC that was conducted last Saturday, were throwing aspersions at the governing party, saying that the party has failed. That was following the decision of the Supreme Court. That is the pronouncement of the Supreme Court that questioned the legality or otherwise of the National Caretaker Committee Chairman, Buni. You think that the timing was right for these 7 members of the PDP to take this decision at the time the opposition party was basking in the euphoria of the crisis that was actually going on in the governing party? Oh.
Well, we're just seeing the smoke of the fire that has been burning PDP for some time now.
It's unfortunate that the 7 national officers resigned at this critical time. But to be frank, the PDP has been burning for a very long time over leadership issues of governance, issues of administration, party administration. Although before the APC gained ground, the PDP was known as a party that has a very good administrative structure. But in terms of management, at this particular time, the PDP has been burning. A lot of members have been uneasy over the leadership style of Prince Uche Secondus. And internally, PDP members have been having this crisis over the way and manner the party is being managed under the tutelage of Mr. Secondus. If you recall, recently, there have been this move by some aggrieved members who openly accused the leadership of sidelining them in the way and manner the resources or the money accrued from the Anambra sales of nomination and expression forms.
And even the 2019
and the 2019, remember what Kasim Afegba said, what he alleged, that the party leadership mismanaged about 10 billion, and which he petitioned some of the anti-graft agencies calling for probe. Although the PDP the NWC were quick through collar to carpet Kasim. But the truth of the matter is that a lot of people in PDP are not happy. Some of their grievances were that about 276 million was gotten from Anambra State. After disbursing some money to the Anambra State chapter, the Southeast Zone, the National Working Committee shared a whopping 75 million naira. Only the first officers, excluding the deputies. So are you saying that as a deputy, you are not a member of an executive cabinet? Are you going to tell me that the vice president, Professor Yemi Oshibajo, is not a member or a bona fide member?
Or the junior ministers, the minister
or
of
the minister of state are not bona fide member of the Federal Executive Council? That is the implication of what has transpired in PDP, or what has been happening in PDP. Well, deputies don't earn salaries. Deputies don't earn allowance. Let me shock you. The deputies in PDP, the national officers, don't have single office, don't have individual office. They were all crowded in one office at the Secretariat. And these are people that went through the electoral process in recruiting the leadership of PDP. How can you treat your national officers in that manner? So would you blame the 7 officers that recently resigned? They bottle their grievances, the way they are being managed, the way they are being treated by the PDP. I don't know what is actually going on in the APC, but that is the truth. You are not earning allowance. You are not being paid salaries. And when a whopping 75 million was allocated to the NWC, none of these deputies got a dime. Would you be happy? So I do not blame them. It is a crisis. It is a crisis that has been ongoing. And there is no better time than now for these officers to air their grievances?
Well, Paul, I sorry to cut you short, but at the end of the day, I think what you have just said has gone a long way to give an insight into what Mr. Deyemi was just trying to tell us. The unfair treatment they were actually talking about.
Yeah.
And of course, some pundits have said that the plot to remove secondus is linked to the effort to take the structure of the party ahead of 2023. They say there is a contestation over who will take over the party before the 2023 presidential poll. There are also those who feel Secondus has mismanaged his position as chairman by alienating a lot of people. And I think that is what you are saying, corroborating what Mr. Odeyemi just told us not quite long, including the governor of his home state. They say he's actually not happy too. And from what we're saying, it's likely Secondus is in hot soup. But could this be the beginning of the end for the Secondus leadership of the PDP?
Well, I wouldn't know whether this would be the beginning of the end of the Secondus-led PDP NWC. But I think it is important that we get or we discuss this crisis in proper perspectives. And I'm happy Mr. Odeyemi is still with us. He's still with us. He's listening to us from UK. Now, it is important for us to know that 2021 is fast spent. We have 5 months to the end of the year. The year 2022 is the real electioneering year. And when electioneering year approaches, or when it comes, you are bound to see this kind of crisis happening because there is a need for alignment and realignment for the soul of the party, for people to take global control of the party, which will give them whether undue or due advantage in order to achieve their political aspiration. That is certain. Now, the PDP is not the only party where deputies are not members of NWC. It's not only the PDP. In APC, the governing party, deputies are not members of the NWC. And that is the reason why when the NWC, in fact the recent one, the Adam Oshomole-led NWC was dissolved, the deputies maintains their position, carrying out their day-to-day activities. So these positions, their designation, the nomenclature are being prescribed by individual party constitutions. And in this respect, they appear similar. So the discourse about an NWC and a deputy being a member is a different discourse, whether there is a need to deepen democratic space and have them on board. But I don't know the wisdom behind such structure, where a national public secretary is a member, but his deputy is not a member. But in the event anything happens to the national public secretary, the deputy takes over. Albeit, not automatically. It will be an acting national public secretary until the position is filled with a person from the same place where the former occupant is coming from. So I don't know the wisdom behind this. Maybe Mr. Odeyemi, who has been a politician, for many years, we actually shed more light on this. So, but we can discuss this in isolation. So yes. This problem is not peculiar to PDP. It is political parties thing. But then the crisis is not surprising. The governing APC is battling with its own crisis. All are pointers to the fact that we are approaching 2022, which is the real electioneering year. Because 2023, at most, the last election will be in March.
It's a voting year.
It's a voting year. The last election will be in March. So nothing can happen except election. The campaigns, the maneuvering, the schemings, the everything will be in 2022. And of course, 2021 is the eve year of 2022. So all these things are not surprising. They are bound to happen. We have been seeing them before, and we continue to see them.
Well, just like you rightly said, I think it will be really, really nice for Mr. Odeyemi to still shed light on some of these things we've just said. Mr. Odeyemi, are you there? Mr. Odeyemi, are you there? Hello? It's like he's not up yet. But well, let's proceed there. You see, under the Secondus leadership, PDP has lost about 4 governors to the APC. Even the one in the Edo, the governor is still struggling to take over the structure of the party in the state, to the extent that some people are insinuating that Obaseki may soon return to APC. Because if there's this feeling that the leadership of under Secondus has not brought enough gain to the party. Could this be the reason why they want him removed? Chibuzo, what do you have to say?
Well, I think Bode touched off on, the usualness of what is playing out now. It is absolutely, in my thinking, expected that we'll have this kind of combustible situation. And it's going to build aggressively as we build towards the end of the year. Don't forget, by December, PDP will be having this convention, and there's a likelihood of a new party leadership coming up. So the battle for the soul of the party has started, and it's going to be quite fierce. Now that it does appear as if they can take a shot at the presidency, with the incumbency factor not so much an issue now. So it is expected that this kind of push and pull is always going to be there. Now, whether secondus is the issue is a different matter, because you can be sure that camps are always going to emerge. But I do know that at the heart of what is playing out is an attempt to ensure secondus does not return for a second term. It is a very strong notion. However, the dispute at the moment is whether or not he should be kicked off before his tenure expires on the one hand, and the concept of having a caretaker arrangement kick in. But you can be sure that this is just the beginning of,
Well, listener, before we continue, let's just quickly take a short break. And of course, we'll be back in a moment. Don't turn off that dial. And of course, don't go offline. Thank you.
The Big Issue. Breaking down the issues that matter.
All right, listener, you're welcome back to Leadership Podcast. And of course, it is the big issue. And of course, the big issue of the day, you're aware, it is the crisis in PDP and the dwindling fortunes of the opposition in Nigeria. Well, back to what we're actually saying, see that there is this fear, even in the camp of the PDP National Chairman Secondus. And the question yearning for answer there is that, can Secondus survive this present push for his removal? At a time, he's no longer in good terms with his own governor, the governor of his home state. The man that was said to have paved the way for him to come into office as national chairman. And of course, it's expected that it would have been Wike, the governor of Rivers State, that would have actually saved him from his present predicament. So, Paul, we think Secondus can survive this without a Wike behind him.
Well, it depends on how Secondus plays his card. It's a dicey game for him. Majority of the governors, going by information I've gathered, are not with him. I think about 3 of the governors in the PDP camp, I think about 3 or so, that are behind the Secondus at the moment. One, I wouldn't want to mention them, but the majority of the governors are not happy with him. And they some of them draw their reasons from the way and manner, the role Secondus played in the Southwest. The feud between the Fayoshe camp and the Makinde camp, they almost embarrassed the sitting governor. And some of his colleagues were not really happy because they said Secondus showed preference. Allegedly shown preference for the Fayoshe camp. But at the end of the day, the Makinde camp succeeded in winning the Congress in the Southwest. So I fear for Secondus, but it can be safe if some of the major stakeholders in PDP, the power brokers, if he can rally them, I think they'll be able to persuade their group members of the party that after all, this present National Working Committee has only about 3 to 4 months. By December, they'll be up for election. So I think the prayers will be just let's calm nerves and allow this administration to end their tenure by December, and let's go to the election, our members, and I elect a new National Working Committee. But it's good this crisis is coming out now. If this issue had come up after December into the election year, the campaigns 2022, it would have been very difficult for the PDP to survive it. Because one, going by the Electoral Act, a candidate must emerge by June, July next year. So you can't start having crises like this in the political party, and yes, you expect to perform well, to do well in the national election. So it's better to solve their problem now. After December, they have a new National Working Committee. If the Secondus choose to contest, fine. This is democracy. It's free. But it's going to be dicey for him. But I see him surviving narrowly. Going by the kind of discussion that have been going on, especially going by the way some of the power brokers have been meeting, especially the Atiku camp and Co. Wike can be talked to calm down and allow his kissman to finish his administration. But it is not good. It's not good for the PDP at this time. It's bad image for them. It's bad publicity for them.
Yeah.
That they can't manage. They fail because the APC before 2015 see them as bad managers of the Nigerian state, and now they are bad managers of their own party. It's not a good PR for them.
Well, you spoke about Secondus probably escaping his ouster by Whisker or in the election. But do you think, because from the camp of the anti-Secondus camp, they say that the contention is that Secondus seems to have lost grip of the party for quite some time now. And they said that became apparent.
He goes and eats it.
Yes, that became apparent when it was time to select a minority leader in the PDP caucus at the House of Representatives. Say the candidate he nominated from Rivers State to become the minority leader was outrightly rejected by the PDP caucus, and they now settled for Elemelu. And then Nigerians believe that this is a weakness because the idea is that it has not helped the party at all, because it shows that Secondus is not even in charge of that party. And these are some of those lapses, leadership lapses, that they think that are enough to say Secondus is not competent enough to lead. You think these lapses are things like this are enough to remove?
Well, most of these issues you talked about, we pick from public domain, are within the realm of conjectures, rumor, conjectures, and the rest of them. They are not necessarily the truth. For example, in the case of the appointment of a minority leader in the House of Reps, there are standard parliamentary practice. Yes, the PDP can say this is the minority leader, but then the House leadership, in order to spite PDP, insisted that it will only recognize Elumelu. So the PDP outside the parliament cannot and does not have the power to go and change the directive or the recognition of the House leadership. Now, to the credit of Secondus, for the first time in the House of Reps, you now have Bajabi Amina recognized minority leader and the PDP caucus leader in the person of Honorable Kingsley Chinda. It has never happened before. It has always been the minority leader is the caucus leader, and the majority leader is the caucus leader for the majority party. But in this case, because President Biamila insisted he will only recognize Elumelu to spy the PDP, PDP also insisted that, okay, that is for the House and in the chamber. But outside the chamber, Kingsley Chinda is the caucus leader, and that has been the arrangement. So most of these things are just within the realm of conjecture. Yes, when people are fed up with the leadership of any organization, a lot of things will be coming up. But I think what is important, and to actually deepen discussion anywhere, is for us to be concerned whether what is happening with our political parties, both PDP, APC, and even the smaller political parties, is good for party politics in Nigeria, and is good for deepening democracy. If it is not good, we should be concerned. We should actually call out the parties to do things right, and if they are good for deepening democratic space, then of course we also amplify the discussion.
Well, thank you very much, Bode. But before we continue, I think some comments have started trickling in here from our listeners. And of course, we have Mr. Deboyo Amodu. This is what he has to say. Why has PDP failed woefully as an opposition party after holding on to power in Nigeria for years? Now that APC has recorded monumental failure in government, there could have been a better alternative. And of course, you see what Amodu is saying there. You can imagine. You can imagine at the time. I think Amodu is actually passing. Is actually he's talking the minds of Nigerians out there. That at the time, before we continue, let's get another reaction, the comment from there. We have Musa Bukwe. Musa said, very annoyed with the leadership of PDP. Why can't they put their house in order as a big opposition, an alternative to APC? That is the anointing. Okay, you see that their comments are just actually in line with public perception. At a time where the governing party is in serious crisis, this was the time that PDP, as the major opposition in the country, would have taken advantage. And of course, don't forget that it was just 2 days ago that Jega came and was saying that they should forget about APC and PDP.
The reasons are not far-fetched.
Let's give credence to what Jega just said.
The reasons are not far-fetched.
You think so, buddy?
Yes, in Nigeria, we don't have political parties.
Hello.
We actually have assemblies of people with interests.
Sorry to short to cut, but it's like Mr. Odeyemi is back here, and of course he has something.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. There has been lots of information flying around. Our people just met with the NWC now, and they called to give me a report. So that's why I've been off.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you share that report with us there?
Purely internal, just to appeal to us to withdraw our letter and to be part of the resolution, and let's see what we can, make out of this. We have done something. They have had us. We have made a point. The whole Nigerian has known, and as a result, what is now left for us is just to come together again, that the resolution cannot be in our absence. So we just have to withdraw our letter. That's the essence of the meeting. So we will meet again, the deputies, in an unusual manner.
We're listening, sir.
Yeah, after this program, I will meet with them. Then we will take a decision whether to maintain our stand or, in the interest of the party, to withdraw our letter. So that's the stage we are now.
Thank you very much, sir. A good one. You see what Odeyemi is saying. There is a new development here that the party has called them and are ready to address their grievance. And they're asking them to withdraw. And of course, as very, very faithful and loyal party members, they have no choice, since the basis for which they resigned in the first place was because of the maltreatment they allege. And for the fact that they are now being called to come and say, come to the dialogue table, we can address this. They are willing to withdraw their resignation.
They are not taking that action. The party wouldn't have realized how they've been marginalizing their national officers.
Of course.
So it's a good development for the party.
Yeah.
It has deepened democracy, internal democracy in PDP. So the leadership of the party, I think some of them will be mulling the idea of amending their constitution
Exactly.
to accommodate their deputies
Yeah.
and also assign certain responsibility, like the way we have at the state level, even at the national level, where the vice president is the head of the economic team. In some states, you find deputy governors as commissioners. Yes,
Assign them specific roles.
Assign them specific role. You don't just leave your deputy like that, redundant.
Yes, but
they got frustrated.
Of course.
So there's need for the PDP to rearrange itself to avoid embarrassment like this.
Sorry to cut you short. I think that from what has just happened now, I think it's a lease of life for the secondus leadership, because it has shown that it is a leadership that listens. So
I told you that somehow they will survive. I say somehow he will survive.
It goes a long way to confirm what you say.
Perhaps some key stakeholders the party must have met and issues addressed. Maybe they must have talked to themselves and say, look, we cannot go down like this.
Well,
Nigerians are looking up to us as an alternative.
It's not too cool yet, clearly. Because I am aware that before now, there have been attempts to reconcile the two key characters in this whole saga. First of all, it's a good thing that they are trying to reach a consensus or a compromise with the deputies. It's a good thing. But as per the bigger issue, which is the conflict between Secondus and his erstwhile political ally, it is still far from promised land, as it were, because this is not the first time an attempt has been made to reconcile them. I'm aware that some top party chieftains have been involved in this process, and it does appear as if, at the risk of putting the weight on one side of the debate, the governor seems to be stuck in on his stance to ensure that Secondus leaves office before his tenure expires. I'm aware that the Benue State governor has tried to intervene in this matter. The Atiku recently paid a visit, although the details of that visit are still shady. But it's all about an attempt to ensure that the crisis or the fight does not escalate to something much more bigger than what the party saw, with the Makarifi and Sheriff conundrum. So it is very important that this does not just overshadow all of the efforts that should be made to ensure that the party gets its act in order, because it is very critical that for a party that boasts of having capacity to return to power, that what is playing out now becomes a litmus test for them, because it will send a strong signal not just to party members, but to the larger Nigerian space, and the non-political elite who might be interested in seeing which party has a stronger structure that they can, queue behind. So it is very important. A key litmus test is how these two, figures manage their issues and, ensure that the party does not get to suffer the worst for it.
Well, Bode, you've heard what Chibuzo said. What do you have to say in this regard?
Yeah, of course.
Even the move now to dialogue with this deputy who resigned is not even enough to say the problem will soon abate. They say it is far from abating. Do you agree?
Well, if there are, of course, other underneath issues, it means crisis will continue. But regarding this resignation and exclusion allegation, the party National Publicity Secretary yesterday told us that the party has activated conflict resolution mechanism,
internal conflict resolution mechanism,
to resolve this crisis. If you are to be other parties, they may call off their bluff. They may say, go to hell. But now, from what Mr. Odeyemi just told us, that they've been called, and there are attempts to actually reconcile all this interest. So this, for me, should be a challenge to other parties to put things right. You don't wait for your house to be on fire before you can actually take preventive or precautionary measures if your neighbor's house is on fire. You understand? So for me, this is a challenge to other political parties to do things right. And like Chibuzo said, of course, when we have well-organized political parties, this may be attractive for Nigerians with ideology, that this is the party I want to belong. But then, like I was saying before, we don't have political parties, unfortunately. What we have is assemblies of people with interest without ideology. So that is why it is easy to jump from one place to the other. It is easy to be a member of one party in the morning and change to another party in the evening. So there is a long way for us to go as a nation. It is beyond the PDP pattern.
Well, thank you, Bode. Listener, that is the much we can take for today's edition of Big Issue. And of course, before we go, I will not forget to thank my very, very vibrant in-house analyst here, my colleagues. Chubuzo, you did well.
Thank you.
Paul, that was a good one. And Bode.
Thank you.
And of course, the issue is just like you heard. We will also not forget to thank Mr. Adeniran Odeyemi, Deputy National Publicity of the People's Democratic Party, who joined us in this program. And of course, he has given us more insight and even got us informed about the latest development. And of course, from what he has just said, it's like the matter is still unfolding. And of course, join us tomorrow, same time, for another edition of this program. For now, we say a big thank you.
The Big Issue. Breaking down the issues that matter.